As I've thought about this month, November, and the event that we're doing, November be myself, my son, other friends doing burpees, a scripture has been rolling around in my head for not just a few days, but a few months. Romans chapter 12. And I wanted to share a few thoughts over this next few days on the whole chapter. And the vision for what I do with some of these events is Romans 12:21. Don't be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. But how do we even get to that point? That's the last scripture, that's the last verse of Romans chapter 12, overcoming evil with good. But how do we even get there? How do we even go along that process? And I've been studying and looking through Romans chapter 12 and reading it over and over and over again. And many of you may know it, but it has some keys to it. So I'm gonna start with the first couple verses today. And it's the heart of what I do, heart of what I live, heart of what we're trying to accomplish here in Guatemala. So if I read Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, it says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, everyone, in the view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." When I think of these verses, I think of this. This hits to the heart of what we're raising funds for these children with issues in their thinking, issues in their minds. God's not just this magical, super spiritual being that doesn't know how to connect with our bodies. And that's important to understand and important to walk out. He was incarnational. He came to the earth to be like us, to walk among us with flesh and blood and sweat and skin and hair and bone. So it says, first of all, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice." When it says bodies there, now I'm going to go through a whole Greek thing. It says bodies, it means personal bodies. It actually means your physical body as a living or as an alive sacrifice. Most sacrifices are dead. Most sacrifices are killed. Throats are slit. People are thrown into volcanoes or whatever. But he's asked us to, our personal being, our personal physical body, to be an alive sacrifice. And 1 Corinthians 15:46 says, everything starts with the physical. The spiritual did not come first, but the natural, and after that, the spiritual. So before we can even move into a lot of spiritual stuff, we have to learn how to do it naturally. A baby learns naturally how to walk, how to eat, how to live, a child. So, be a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God, for this is your true and proper worship. So when it talks about true and proper, it actually means divine reasonableness. What is logical to God? Working through the divine reasoning through faith. So, our true and proper, our true and God logical God thinking, how God thinks. This is our true and proper worship. So it's what is logical to God, service rendered to him. So it's our first worship. So true and proper worship means this is something that God understands. It's true to him. He gets it. So our lives are supposed to be like that. It says, do not conform. And this just means do not identify with. Do not assume an expression or the same pattern or the same mold, the same thinking, the same attitude, the mindset. Do not conform to the world, to the thinking of the world. And the world doesn't mean, it means the age. It means because we're supposed to be thinking beyond ourselves. We're supposed to be thinking of heaven. We're supposed to be thinking the way God thinks. of an eternal thought. So do not conform to this world, but be transformed. And transformation there means to be metamorphosized, to change after being with. So if our thoughts are do not conform to the way that the world or the way that society sets things up, but be transformed, we are transformed by being with someone, by being with God, by being with his purposes. Now I'm talking about this because it's important to know that if we want to make a difference in our society, we have to start somewhere. And the next part, it says, be transformed by the renewing of our mind. So it means to bring a renewal, to bring a new development, to make fresh, to make new. And this is achieved by God's power. So this is the key. I'm doing burpees for mental health, for neurological. I'm using my physical body as a sacrifice to raise awareness, to show, and I believe this strongly. People need to see that we care, not just with words, but with actions and with deeds. And everything that starts, if an athlete wants to become a good athlete, it starts here. If a leader wants to be a good leader, it starts by beginning to think and beginning to think better and beginning to think, I can do this. I can actually attempt this. So by the renewing of your mind, this is the first place that true sacrifice starts. If we want to find his will and make a difference in this world, it always starts with the mind. That is why I'm fighting. And we're talking about kids with issues, disconnects in their brains, whether through circumstances, malnutrition, or whatever. I want to see them have a renewed mind. And sometimes it takes medication. Sometimes it takes extra help and extra learning. And that's what I'm going for. I've had to run marathons and ultra marathons. I've attempted these things, and 90% of it is mind, of thinking. I got to get through this dark valley. It's not all physical. It always starts with the mind. So the mind, this is what the Greek says, the God-given capacity for each person to think or reason, the mental capacity to exercise reflective thinking. For the believer, it is the organ of receiving God thoughts through faith. This is where we begin to think like God and have an opinion like God. Then, as we renew our mind, which is an organ to think like God and receive God thoughts through faith. This is the Greek talking. Then you'll be able to test. You'll be able to show that something is acceptable, something is real, something is genuine. I can put it to the test. I can distinguish. I get these thoughts, and I can say, I'm going to run this far. I'm going to do this piece of music this good, and then we got to put it to the test to approve what God's will or what God's desires are, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. I know that took a long time to bring two verses together, but God is wanting us to take our thoughts and not be conformed to the way that the world thinks, not to get trapped in what society is saying, but come into the idea of God, come into the thoughts of God, to take our minds, our thoughts captive and be renewed. So that is the first step. And like I said, it starts physical, and it starts with our thought patterns and what we're renewing. So I'm gonna continue on with this, and I want to bless you with that. I want to bless you with those thoughts, to begin to ask God, where can I renew my mind? How can I think like you? Because you have called me for something higher. And these kids that I'm doing crazy burpees, 500 a day for 30 days, is giving me an opportunity to share what we do and show who these children who need help are. So have a good day and be blessed. And watch for the next part of Romans chapter 12.